Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Antigua's Prime Minister receives prestigious award in New York. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Monday, 25th April 2022. Details when we return.
Hubbard's Multi-Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies Compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Welcome back. Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda Gaston Brown was described as a Caribbean legend as he was bestowed with a prestigious award in New York in the United States on Thursday evening. The prestigious Legacy Award is from the American Foundation of the University of the West Indies and recognizes the head of government's efforts to improve the lives of people in Antigua and Barbuda and the region. ABS's Jamie J. Roger reports.
He's not just a friend. He is an historic figure. He is a legend of our people. When the history is written way beyond his time, the historians are going to say, what an extraordinary man to have given us a push just when we needed that push most.
The University of the West Indies Vice Chancellor Sir Hilary Beckles showering Prime Minister the Honourable Gaston Brown with praise Thursday. It's the American Foundation for the University of the West Indies' 25th Annual Legacy Awards Gala in New York. Sir Hilary says the foundation is celebrating the leader for his courage, passion, commitment and dedication to Caribbean people.
We are always inspired by him. But when he puts up his hand and he says, we are going to build a campus of the UWI for the people of the Eastern Caribbean, that was magnificent, and that is what he has done. So for me,
moments later, the Prime Minister accepts the Foundation's prestigious Legacy Award. He says when his government came to power in 2014, it was determined to turn around the country's fortunes after meeting the economy contracted by 25%.
We were undaunted by the challenges. We took the position that we could transform Antigua and Barbuda into an economic powerhouse within the Caribbean over time.
The foundation says the award recognizes Prime Minister Brown for improving his people's lives by increasing the housing stock, reducing unemployment, and improving healthcare. It also applauds the Prime Minister for upgrading plants and equipment, increasing the number of medical practitioners, upgrading infrastructure including airports and seaports, and increasing investments in expanding tourism. Jamie J. Rocher, ABS News.
Barbados' Democratic Labour Party has signalled that the race is on for new leadership, as Dr. David Eastwick and University lecturer Dr. Ron Yearwood will contest the presidency of the party. More in this Barbados Today news item.
The vote will be held at an extraordinary conference early next month. Interim DLP President Steve Blackett told Barbados Today he is confident both members are up to the task. He rubbished recent statements made by political pundits that candidates identified for the leadership contest left much to be desired.
4 credible candidates emerged out of the nomination process of the Democratic Labour Party's nomination. And not a single one, to use the Bajan parlance, could fill the eyes of Dr. George Bell or Harley Henry. If Jesus Christ of Nazareth came back to this earth and presented himself as a prospective candidate of the Democratic Labour Party, I believe that Harley Henry and George Bell would say that he's not good enough because he came from Nazareth, that he was the son of a carpenter, and he was not of the ilk to fill the eyes of the people of Barbados. So, as far as I am concerned, as the interim president, I ignore people like that. We are getting on with the business of the Democratic Labour Party, as we have seen here this morning, and we are doing what we have to do to re-emerge as a force, a political force in this country. We hear them because we are not deaf.
Recovering Caribbean economies are hard-pressed to keep up with spiraling inflation and high debt, warns Barbados' Prime Minister Mia Mottley, as she again called for action at the global level to help countries cope.
Speaking during a high-level panel discussion examining the global economy as part of the IMF World Bank spring meetings, Motley made clear the ongoing war in Ukraine is having a crippling impact in a situation where countries have no financial buffer.
An increase in inflation. By the end of last year, inflation was regrettably up to almost 6% from just over 3% before. So when that is now compounded by the war in Ukraine and the supply chain problems, again with the lockdown in China, we expect to see continued inflationary pressures. And then when you add to that the tightening of monetary policy, that's going to be worse for us, because you have to recall that unlike other countries, the only thing we could really do was literally to increase debt. We don't have the benefit of the fiscal and monetary relaxation that Europe and the UK and the US were able to do so successfully in the middle of the pandemic. We don't have those options. And that is why for us, the whole injustice of the moment probably relates to the fact that the enormous COVID debt that we've accumulated has now also to limit the space that we have to be able to fight inflation, because in small economies such as ourselves, small open economies, as you know, the only way we can cushion inflation is by expanding our fiscal position to be able to buffer people. So these things are truly concerning to us. The issue of the debt is even more so.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
Trinidad and Tobago does not possess or use Pegasus spyware. The statement was made at a sitting in the House of Representatives on Friday by Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. Ayana Carter of TTT News reports.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley said that clarification on the issue had become necessary in order to correct what he termed misinformation with local and international consequences, led by opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar.
I'm referring to the recent allegations that have been publicly made by the member for Superior that the state is using an interception tool known as Pegasus spyware solution, Pegasus, to illegally intercept telecommunications and is engaged on widespread spying on citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. I must at the outset, Madam Speaker, state that this is completely untrue.
Mrs. Persad-Bissessar previously made allegations at a political meeting that the state procured the Pegasus spyware and was conducting secret surveillance on key members of society. Dr. Rowley explained that intelligence agency, the Strategic Services Agency, or SSA, is the sole custodian of all known interception communication software and hardware.
The SSA has provided an intercept suite to be used by the TTPS, but the equipment is the sole responsibility of the SSA and remains under the SSA's strict jurisdiction. This is to ensure accountability and control by vetted officers engaged in crime fighting and matters of national security.
Dr. Rowley further explained that interceptions are granted for a limited time, with the Chief of Defense Staff, the Commissioner of Police, and the Director of the SSA the only persons who can authorize interception of communications. The Prime Minister, who is also the chairman of the National Security Council, also noted that the TTPS is not conducting interception of communications outside of the SSA-provided suite. Ayana Carter, TTT News.
Meanwhile, Dr. Rowley defended stoutly the recent hike in prices at the pumps and assures that government is still paying 50% of the fuel subsidy, and he suggests the recent increase is reasonable given the global price hike in fuel prices.
So I just ask the population to be reasonable. Yes, it's something we would rather not have to deal with, but the reality is that the product costs more and the taxpayers are paying a half of the cost, and you, the user, are paying the other half. Reasonable.
Dr. Rowley also urged citizens to ignore statements that the price of fuel could have been lower had the Petrotrin refinery still been in operation.
Why is the price skyrocketing in America, which has so many refineries and so much volume of oil being produced in their country? And why are countries that have no refinery not seeing their politicians walking up and down the street organizing their future on gas prices?
There have been 20 murders in Trinidad and Tobago over the past 7 days. However, Acting Commissioner of Police MacDonald Jacob says 4 people have already been arrested and numerous weapons seized. Renessa Cutting of TV6 News reports.
A total of 20 persons lost their lives over the past week, with the country recording 3 murders last Thursday, 3 on Friday, 4 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday, 2 on Monday, 5 on Tuesday, and another 2 on Wednesday. But the acting commissioner notes the majority of these incidents were not gang-related.
From last week, Thursday to Tuesday morning, there were in fact around 14 murders. There were in fact 14 murders. And 7 or 8 of those murders were in fact involving domestic and altercation matters between persons, neighbors, friends, a little fallout.
Despite the nature of the crimes, however, the weapon of choice was almost always firearms. The acting commissioner says several persons have already been arrested and charged following these incidents.
So we had about 4 persons within the week being charged for murder. So again, the homicide bureau, they are doing the work, and our ballistics department that we have set up at is helping out tremendously. And now I've made the decision to take 3 police officers who are qualified to place them in the forensic science center to be trained as scientists so they can assist with the whole processing of DNA so that we can speed up the process of dealing with the detection of some of these crimes.
Since the launch of its firearm retrieval initiative this year, the TTPS has seized over 230 firearms. But the top cop notes what happens next is out of the control of the TTPS.
This situation came about with the bail for murder, where persons think to get bail for murder. You know, what kind of case we making to prevent persons from getting bail for possession of firearms and ammunition?
Renessa Cutting, TV6 News.
A small plane crashed onto a busy street in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, killing at least 6 people, including the pilot, officials have confirmed. Gordon Mosley of News Source Guyana tells us more.
The plane took off from the Port-au-Prince airport just after 3:44 p.m. on the route to the Haitian city of Jamel. The Haitian Civil Aviation Authority said, adding that the plane suffered engine failure and sent a distress alert just after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, less than half an hour after takeoff. The mayor of the community where the plane crashed said 6 persons had died. A government source said the pilot died after he was taken to a hospital. Videos circulating on WhatsApp show the broken wreckage of the plane in the middle of a road, along with what appear to be bodies of victims of the crash.
Hubbard's Motor Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.